Our top story tonight, some going down in November.
Wars, spending.
There has got to be something big a-brewing.
They're using geese to guard prisons in Brazil.
Does Biden know what
Immigration
Mexico
policies.
is? Would you scare Joe Biden? What are we laughing at?
I think Billy Mays was real.
I'm a world-class skeptic.
I don't know anything about Hunter Biden. I don't know who's big into cocaine and laptops. Why is that our problem?
Complete, absolute incompetence. Like, who funds the news? It's a freaking inside job, man. That the entire world's a stage and everything's fake.
Hello. Welcome, folks, to another edition of the Veritas Road. Carson and John back here in the studio, joined today by Weezy from What is Truth Pod. How's it going, sir?
I'm doing rather exquisite. Thank you for having me on.
Dude, thank you for doing us a favor and doing this. We appreciate it. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, man. No worries. I'm just a garbage man. So, thank you.
I feel like I am a genuinely garbage person, so it sounds like we'll get along okay. Yeah. So I guess real quick, just like tell us. I'm pretty new to this whole world, so like tell me, let everybody a little bit about like you, who you are, how you got into this. You know.
Yeah, man. So I probably started my podcast like in 2019, mostly for stuff and giggles.
Yeah.
I would just drink a couple beers on the beach,
Right.
muse about a couple things, and uploaded a couple of episodes. And I got excited when after a week, you get your analytics. I had 2 or 3 downloads, and I was like, hell yeah, dude. That is
Right.
awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I never expected it to grow any more than that. And I got lucky. I had a couple of big strides early on. I was on pace to 10,000 subscribers in just, my first year. And then I got taken down,
Oh my God.
lost a few channels. That's why I never tell people to follow me on YouTube. I've been struck down too many times.
Damn.
But
yeah.
yeah, the last few years I've had another renaissance to come back. I've been lucky. And as the show has got bigger and bigger, and people started knowing more about me, I was like, I need to do something more to kind of separate myself, be a little different.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I was looking at some bigger shows and trying to see what they were doing as they were getting bigger. And I noticed people had niches, had little areas of expertise. I didn't really have that when I was starting out. I was just covering a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Right.
But I wasn't a specialist in anything. And then a few years back, I started going down the David McGowan rabbit hole, and I saw him break down the Boston Marathon. I was like, man, this is exquisite. This is awesome.
Right.
I want to get this dude on my show. Like, I love this guy's vibe and energy. And then I started doing more research on him, and I found out he had been dead since 2015. And I'm like, oh, I guess I won't be having him on my show.
Guess he's not going to be available. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But I really fell in love with David McGowan's approach to conspiracies and try to see what is reality, what is staged, what's fake.
Right.
Especially in this climate, there's so much stuff out there. It's hard to know what is truth, and that's what inspired the name of my show. What is truth? Because I don't know. I still don't know. I don't think many of us really know if we have what is exactly truth. We may feel we have truth, but how do we know absolutely 100% definitively? It's hard. And so I like David McGowan's approach in breaking down events that get accepted and passed on as official, as this is the official narrative. This is what it is. He would break a lot of these events down and show, look, this is what we have been told is the historical record on this subject.
Right.
But here's where it falls. And he had a way to look at big things and look, if you're missing this big piece piece to the puzzle right out the gate, why should you accept everything else that goes along with it? It's super simple. And so I've now taken that same approach and apply it to a lot of these things that we see get passed off as historical fact or
Right. Yeah.
whatever it may be. But I never cared for the Lincoln assassination until I read David McGowan's book on it that you can find at his website that's run by his daughter currently. It's the Center for Uninformed America, which is short for CIA.
That's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, that's a David McGowan thing. It's like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
But his Lincoln book really intrigued me. It intrigued me so much. I ended up doing a voiceover, like an audiobook version that you can find on my podcast player. It's nestled around episode 169 for anyone interested. But I dove into it and I had a couple of mistakes in reading the book. I also encourage anyone that wants to listen to it at like 1.5 speed. I read it super
Fair
slow.
enough. Yeah.
To try to minimize the amount of mistakes. But I really, really loved it. And I've actually listened to myself read me that book well over 10 times. I've read an assortment of Lincoln books now in the last few years. And I call myself a Lincoln assassination researcher.
Right.
And the reason I've done that is because I put in tons and tons of hours into that research. I've read many, many books, going on 10 books on the subject matter. I've listened to so many lectures. I've listened to so many official records. I've looked at newspapers from the era that I've taken it upon myself to give myself that title as researcher. I've gone over to DC. I've gone to Ford's Theater. I've visited the Surratt home. I've gone through the Seward home that used to be there. I've been there and absorbed these places, so that I could call myself a researcher. And I'm at this point now, and it may sound arrogant if you don't know me, but the reason I'm saying this is because I truly feel confident in the subject. I would be willing to debate anyone, any historian. Put this guy that looks, I may not look the parts as your typical Lincoln assassination researcher, but put me in front of anyone and I will debate the hell out of them. And I will show you why I feel stronger about my case on the events, because my take on the Lincoln assassination research is so far different than any historian you'll ever hear.
Yeah. Right.
And so on first glance, when I say some of the things I say, like, that's not what happened. That's because you've been following the official record. Now give me a minute and I'll show you why I view the things in this way. And I reject the official tale entirely. I don't believe anything on the official tale. I think the only thing I believe is that Lincoln was perhaps killed.
Perhaps. Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. That's really the only thing. I don't, anything else, the events that happened at Ford's Theater, the events that allegedly happened at the Seward Mansion with Lewis Payne Powell attacking, I don't believe any of that. And so, and I mentioned David McGowan, but it's heavily inspired through David McGowan's work. He laid down the groundwork. He is no longer here. So I'm just trying to further his original research. So I'm always sure to bring up David McGowan, just so his memory is not forgotten. I mean, he was an amazing researcher, and all I'm trying to do in my little way is carry on the David McGowan torch.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly. I was thinking, like, picking up that torch and kind of carrying it on in your own way, which is really cool. Like, kind of carrying on his legacy. You mentioned a couple things that I thought were interesting. So you said you were already kind of in this space, right? But then you kind of happened across the Lincoln assassination. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. In 2019, I started just kind of screwing around, talking smack on the beach. And then I got a little bit of online fisticuffs with a big YouTuber, English guy named Sean Atwood.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's got 1 million subs these days, but I uncovered some unsavory things about him. He wasn't
Yeah.
what he portrayed himself to be. I would lately I've been doing shows with Seven C's on psyop influencers. I would deem him as a UK psyop influencer for sure.
I believe
But
that.
I ended up getting a massive following, mostly from the UK, believe it or not. So that was super weird for me.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I became somewhat of a celebrity in the UK because I exposed Sean Atwood. But then as I had that rise, I got taken down on YouTube. And so I had to start all over. And I said, yeah, that's it. And Missy,
Yeah.
she's been following me from those days, from the very OG right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I after that, I was like, after I got kicked off of YouTube, I was like, I don't care. This is more like a soapy thing.
Right.
He's a scrub 100%, but I don't care about that. I want to cover stuff that I'm interested in. 9/11. The moon landings is another subject that I cover in depth on my show. And things along those lines. But then again, I was trying to look for something that would set me apart. And what I liked about the Lincoln assassination was it was super interesting to me, and no one was talking about it. The only one that talked about it was David McGowan, and he's no longer here. So like, why don't I get into that? I didn't want to be in a crowded field, man, because if you talk about JFK, everyone and their dog talks about JFK. It's like too crowded, too infested. I didn't want any part of that.
That makes sense.
Not because I feared competition. It's just, I don't know. I'm kind of weird that way. I like doing things that other people ain't doing.
Right.
If everyone's doing this, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna do something completely different. That's just the way my mind works.
Yeah, dude, you're the first person I've actually seen go in depth on the actual assassination itself, because it's like I read Thomas DiLorenzo's book, The Real Lincoln, like 5 or 6 years ago. I've watched a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of Brian McClanahan, where he kind of breaks down a lot of like the official narrative of the Civil War, but like it always starts, in the 1850s, runs through up until the point Lincoln got assassinated, and then it just kind of stops, and that was the same with DiLorenzo's book.
Yeah, man. So last night I did a little stream on Andersonville prison, something that a lot of people had never heard of. And it was a prison in the South where Union soldiers were kept. And a few of the folks that ended up surviving and had some diaries and wrote about their experience, man, that was hell on earth. And a lot of people will say, well, that's the crappy South and the Confederates, how evil those guys. But very few people ever go, well, wait a minute. Lincoln could have engaged in prisoner swaps and he refused it, because the way they viewed it was, if they engaged in prison swaps with the South, it mostly favored the South. The Union had way more manpower, more money. So it's one of those philosophical debates and questions like, damn, is that morally right? You're sacrificing all those people that are going to, 13,000 prisoners died within the span of a few months in Andersonville prison due to the epidemics and diseases that were within. It was designed to hold only 10,000 soldiers, and they crammed nearly 50,000 at one point in there, and again, if you do the math, 13,000 dying and there's nearly 50,000, it's like 1 in 4 of those people dying in there. And so this last week, I listened to an entire audiobook diary of someone that survived Andersonville prison. And I also listened to the audiobook of A Short Life of Abraham Lincoln, which was written by his secretary, John George Nicolai, Lincoln's private secretary. And it was an 18-hour audiobook, and I listened to the whole thing. I listened to it at 2-point speed. But that gave me, and it's obviously official narrative, which I'm highly skeptical of anyways, but it gives you like from the perspective of someone that knew him, and it gives you a logical record of Abraham Lincoln, who his grandfather was, who his dad was, where he was born, a little bit of his upbringing, childhood. And then it really gets into the Civil War. And obviously it's from the Northerns, from the Union perspective. So you gotta keep that in mind. But it gives you how someone would have perceived the official record to view it. And so my view on the whole Civil War, it's the way I view everything these days. I feel the truth is somewhere in the middle, because you're going to hear the Northern Union perspective, and they're going to say it's all about slavery. You're going to hear the Southern saying, no, it had nothing to do with slavery. It was only about states' rights. I think there's a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there. But people get caught up on these left and right paradigms all the time. They get married to these sides. You have to be able to look at nuance to get to truth. But a lot of people fail to go there many times.
Oh, it's so true. It's so massively important. And you see a lot of people getting tied up in that, like, I guess, identity politics, so to speak, and getting married to the idea of, like, well, the North and slavery is a really easy one, because, I mean, good luck having that discussion in the social climate we're in now, out in public. That's already like a really difficult, sensitive thing to talk about, even still, it feels like. And so, like, your willingness to actually address that's pretty cool. And it's so interesting, at least for me, to see somebody questioning some of this, like, older accepted history, things like Andersonville, which I hadn't heard of until yesterday, or like the Lincoln assassination, which, again, like, I hadn't even thought to question that. There are a lot of things now, in 2025 that I feel like a lot of your, like, millennial folks are asking questions about, like 9/11, Corona, what else? The Challenger explosion. Like, everybody's asking questions about that stuff. But nobody's looking back and saying, "Oh my God, what really did happen with Lincoln?" When some of these, like, completely accepted narratives that have been passed on, and, like, what triggered you to even, was it just McGowan's book that triggered you to start looking into that? Was it like a vibration in the ether?
It really was McGowan, because he tied it into current day events. Because that's one of the things that I get a lot of, like, that's cool, man. That's fascinating. But that happened 160 years ago. Why do you care?
Right. Yeah.
And for me, I'll give you a couple reasons. And some of these are obviously heavily inspired by David McGowan, but some of them have become my own original takes. I'll give you an example. I don't know how you guys feel about the Trump assassination attempt. I deemed it fake immediately. It didn't seem real at all. It just it seemed
super
off.
weird. Yeah,
And
just off.
one of those things, Lincoln assassination. In the Lincoln assassination, right off the bat, so Lincoln is at Ford's Theater. He's sitting, his left ear is closest to the wall. He's looking that way towards the stage. Okay, so his left ear is that way. We're told that Wilkes Booth came in there with a one-shot Derringer.
That makes sense.
The official story is so freaking ridiculous. I'm going to break it down, but I'm going to give you an example connected to modern day events and why it's interesting for me. Booth allegedly comes in, shoots him. He's a right-hander. So think about that shot. His hand was going to have to twist over. It's such a ridiculous thing. So official historians say that right before Booth pulled the trigger, at just the wrong moment, Lincoln turned his head that way to make the shot more realistic. So Lincoln turns his head at the wrong moment, dies. Trump turns his head at the right moment, miraculously survives.
Yeah.
When I saw this, because I had studied the Lincoln assassination research, because I had, as soon as I saw that, that's bullshit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is why I get passionate about the Lincoln stuff, because so many of the things that happen, once you understand it,
Right.
and you see it happening in real time, like what happened when I saw when the Butler stuff, like, he ripped that off from Lincoln. You can call BS immediately. You don't have to wait for this or that. I already saw this playbook play out. You guys are recycling something that already happened. But the thing is, most people don't go there or they forget. It flies right over their head.
Yeah, no, that's so true, and it's one of those things where, like, at least like personally, I'm not even remotely. It's a story. I ignored history in school because I didn't care, but it's now like looking back and hearing people like you talk about things like that. There are all these like weird, repeated, not necessarily events, but like themes within events. Like they're it's like a string that kind of flows through the official narrative from Lincoln all the way till now, which is wild. And I'm glad there are people like you to break it down, because like now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see where learning about the JFK assassination, learning about Lincoln, learning about all this stuff greatly affects your perspective on like current events, because you can look at the Trump assassination and say, where like me, I'm like, that looks kind of weird, kind of fucked, but I can't exactly tell you why, in a lot of cases. You can say, well, okay, let me, you can break it down and talk about, well, Lincoln turned his head at the exact wrong moment, Trump turned his head at the exact correct moment, and kind of highlight those comparisons, which are fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I'm curious then about the actual like events of this, like the Lincoln assassination, because I don't know much about it. Yeah.
So I could spend hours and hours on this thing. So I'm going to try to give you a condensed version of it. And I do have, if you go to my Odyssey channel, I do have, if you go down to the playlist sections, on my Odyssey channel, one of the playlists, I have a lot of my moon landings. So if you're interested in the moon landings, I feel at this point, if you still believe in the moon landings, if you watched every single episode that I've done with my friends, just individual shows, you will become a non-believer quick. There's so much jam-packed information. I've had engineers, scientists on my show debunking the whole thing. But I have a playlist on that. And I also have a playlist on Lincoln assassination or anything related to it there. So it's lots and lots of hours of content, for anyone interested. But I'll give you a breakdown, and I'll quickly give you, a little teaser as to why my views on the Lincoln assassination are drastically different, especially if you have a little bit of if you've looked into some of the official story, you're gonna be like, whoa, what the hell?
Right.
I believe, and so when I say I believe, I don't think you can ever know something 100%. You can't. This happened 160.
Yeah.
You haven't had 100. I mean, this was 160 years ago. All these people are long gone. There's just no way to know with absolute certainty. Right. But if I was to wager who shot Lincoln, everyone tells you it was John Wilkes Booth, a young 26-year-old failed actor, is what some people will say. That's what most people will say. Even people that doubt the official story, like an Otto Eisenschimmel, one of the first people that wrote books on the subject back in the 1930s. Most people, again, even the conspiracy-oriented minded on the Lincoln assassination, will say Booth is the one that shot Lincoln. Right. I don't. I say Henry Rathbone is the most likely shooter, which is drastically different than any. I had a conversation with Don Jeffries, and when I told him that, like, holy smokes, you're the first Henry Rathbone conspiracy theorist I've ever heard of. And I don't say
pretty niche area,
yeah. And I don't say it because I do like being different, but that's not why I'm saying. I'm saying based on the evidence, available evidence, and that's where it points out. And I want to lay down my case. So, all right. The other one that separates me is there was an alleged attack that happened simultaneously at the Seward mansion. William Seward was the Secretary of State. William Seward is not very well known today, but we had Thanksgiving a couple weeks ago. William Seward is the one that introduced the Thanksgiving Act in 1863, and he drafted the act, and Lincoln passed it. And that Thanksgiving was going to be celebrated the last Thursday of November each year. So Lincoln is known, William Seward is known for that. He is
Right.
also the one that is credited for acquiring Alaska from the Russians. So quick little facts. But allegedly this crazy violent attack happened that was all these people were assailed by this young kid, Southern boy, Mr. Powell, and Lewis Payne Powell. I don't believe that ever happened at all. I believe that attack was completely staged
at the mansion at the same time that that Lincoln was getting shot.
Yeah. So
wow.
For those people that don't know, I'm going to give you a quick little recap, and everything I'm going to give you is the official story. And sometimes I may kind of give you a little smirk as I'm telling you the official story, because I'm showing you this is how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
One of the things that McGowan taught me was so many things you hear as official story and you don't really bother to question. You may think in your mind, yeah, that's a little weird, but I guess, they're telling me that's what happened. Case in point, 9/11.
Right.
They find one of the alleged hijackers' passport in the rubble.
Yeah, right.
And I remember hearing that. I'm like, that's crazy, but I guess it happened.
Wild how it made it all the way down. Yeah.
But McGowan, through his mindset, McGowan, like, do not accept that stuff, man. If it sounds ridiculous, there's probably more ridiculousness to it. So as I go along with the official story, I'm gonna kind of laugh. And it's not me saying this. This is the official tale.
Right.
So I want to clarify, and I like to give you the official tell, and then I come in like a surgeon and debunking it. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. This is what's wrong. And then at the end of the day, you decide. I'm not telling you you have to believe the way I believe. Maybe at the end you're like, yeah, you still sound crazy. John Wilkes Booth is still the shooter. Go ahead, man. I'm just telling you this is the way I view it, and everyone is entitled to make their own opinions at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the case with so many of these narratives. Is like, at least when you hear them, like for the first time as a kid, I don't know about other people, but for me, like there were always these little bits and pieces where you look at it and you just kind of laugh to yourself and you're like, that's kind of retarded. But you can't look up at your teacher, in third grade and be like, shut up, you're an idiot. You can't do that. And so you just learn to accept these things until, now I'm 32 and starting to like get out there and question things like the Lincoln assassination and people like you and McGowan poking holes in that narrative that when you go back and even look at the official chain of events, they don't fit together. It's just there's nobody out there filling in the pieces most of the time. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Complete sense. Freaking passports falling down from 30,000 feet after a plane blows up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Yeah.
It really is.
Totally agree.
There's so many events, man. So many events like that. So I'll recap the official story. So the official story states that John Wilkes Booth was the lead conspirator. Most people, when they hear Lincoln assassination, most people that haven't gone too deep think it was just an actor,
right? That
kills Lincoln while he's in the theater, jumps down to the stage, yells some shit, hauls ass, and that's really, in a nutshell, what most people think of it. And case closed, everything's done. And then some people will find out, oh yeah, he escaped for 12 days, and there was a manhunt. Then other people are like, oh yeah, there was a Seward attack. So I'm going to give you the whole entire thing. This is what made me fascinated. Once you knew all the story, like, man, no wonder they don't teach it in school, because the whole story is garbage. And so the official tells us that John Wilkes Booth was, in every one of these co-conspirators were from the Maryland area. The only exception to that was Lewis Payne Powell. Again, he was a Southern boy from Georgia, Florida. He's made out to be like some kind of Confederate Rambo, and I'll get into him a little bit more later on. But apparently about a year prior to the actual assassination, which occurred, so he got shot on April 14th of 1865, which was a Good Friday. He ended up dying from the wound at 7:22 a.m. the next day on April 15th.
Good Friday. You think that's really when it happened, or was that like some kind of ritual? Like what? Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
not to pepper you with questions right off the bat, but
yeah, you can take that as you wish. So the Civil War apparently ended on April 9th at Appomattox with Robert E. Lee surrendering to Grant. But prior to this, I want to take you prior to this. This is the official story. Allegedly, Booth had been planning to kidnap Lincoln. And I kind of mentioned about prisoner swaps for Andersonville because, again, prisoner swaps helped the South more than they did the North. So the official narrative tells us, by kidnapping Lincoln, they could get mad prisoner swaps. You know, I want 50,000 soldiers if you guys want for one Lincoln. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like playing chess. You know, if you're able to checkmate with a regular little pawn and you got the queen check, you know, that was a massive move.
Yeah.
And so that's what the official narrative tells us. So Lincoln gets his little ragtag band of co-conspirators, and one of his second in command was John Surratt Jr. He was the son of Mary Surratt, who ended up later getting hung for this. She was the first woman in the United States to get executed by the government.
Damn,
and
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And so John Surratt Jr. was the second in command. He ended up allegedly recruiting some of these other guys, like Lewis Payne Powell, who I mentioned, a young kid, handsome son of a bitch. He was like 6 foot, 20-year-old, just rough and tough dude. He looks like it on his pictures, and you can pull up these images on Wikipedia. He's recruited by John Wilkes Booth. George Atzerodt, a little fat German dude that later on he gets the duty to assassinate Johnson, Vice President Johnson.
Right.
And instead of assassinating him, the official story tells us that he ends up getting drunk and chickens out. That's the official story. And Lewis Payne Powell is then for the assassination at the same time that Booth has pulled the trigger. So a conspiracy happened. This is what's crazy. Even in the official story, it is acknowledged that a conspiracy happened to do this. But I'm kind of skipping ahead. Prior to this, Booth is recruiting these guys and they're plotting to kidnap him. And it is well known that Lincoln enjoyed taking walks alone through the DC area. No escorts, no guards or nothing. So it could have been an easy endeavor to kidnap him at any point. So why didn't it ever happen at that point in time?
Right.
There's also a legend that when Lincoln gets inaugurated, Booth is right there in the crowd, and there's a picture that allegedly shows Booth looking down, and Booth allegedly tells people, Booth allegedly tells people, "Oh man, I could have shot him right there. Yeah. Why didn't he do it then?"
Right. Why wouldn't you just go ahead and do it?
But the official story tells us that all these people that he ends up getting, all these co-conspirators. Mary Surratt had a boarding house not far from Ford's Theater. It still exists today, the boarding house, but it's a Chinese restaurant, so it's hilarious. This historical place is now a Chinese restaurant.
That's some irony.
Yeah, but allegedly, all these people, the co-conspirators, would meet at Mary Surratt's boarding house, and they would discuss this. We're gonna kidnap him. We're gonna kidnap him. Right. And they discussed several times where there's they're gonna be doing it. Then we are told that about a week prior, Booth really starts kicking up the ante. Now that General Lee has surrendered at Appomattox, he's like, shit. Now kidnapping ain't gonna do nothing. The Civil War's ended, but his hate fueled him. Just like the hate fueled the hijackers in some caves in Afghanistan to pull off 9/11. The visceral hate fueled Booth from going. Now it's gone from a kidnapping plot to a murder plot. It is at this point that even the official narrative tells us that most of the co-conspirators are like, nah, man, I was good with kidnapping him, but I'm not cool with killing Lincoln, and they backed out. That included John Surratt Jr. That included Mary Surratt Jr., who later got executed. All these people, even with the official narrative, tells us that they backed out.
So you think they backed out too?
Oh, the official narrative tells us they backed out.
Right.
I think they were all patsies. My view on it, they were all patsies. But this, I'm just going through the official narrative. They backed out. It wasn't until the morning of Friday, on Good Friday, on April 14th, that Booth, it was only then that he decided, I'm going to kill Lincoln. Think about it.
Just woke up one day and was like, I think I'm going to kill Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm going to wake up. So this elaborate scheme he wakes up. He probably woke up with some morning wood. I'm going to kill Lincoln today.
Right.
Let's go, man. And we are told, the official narrative tells us that early that day, he goes to, there's no evidence for this. This is what official historians will tell you. And I would press them if someone tells you this. What is the evidence for this claim? We're told that Booth goes to Ford's Theater early in the morning because he was an actor. He was 26 years old. He was not the most famous actor of the era. His brother Edwin Booth was actually more famous than him. But Booth was still making close to an equivalent, in today's money, he was making like 300 G's a year.
Damn.
300 G's a year.
Jeez.
Not in Civil War money. I'm talking about converted over to today's money.
Right.
That's still he's living pretty fat. So
I
he was
imagining him as a broke son of a bitch out there, just like, that's surprising. Okay.
Yeah. So he had money. This is another little thing that this is another thing I want to stress. He had money, and it's gonna embolden my case as to why I believe Henry Rathbone is the most likely shooter.
Okay.
So, anyways, we're told Booth allegedly goes to Ford's Theater early that morning, drills a hole because he was an actor and he was well known. He was given allegedly a free pass to do whatever the hell. Oh, it's John Wilkes Booth. Hell yeah, do whatever you want.
Right.
He allegedly goes in the morning, drills a peephole into the box where Lincoln's going to be. He also fashions a rod to wedge the door shut later on. This is official story narrative nonsense that we are told. So then he meets with Lewis Payne Powell and George Atzerodt and Davy Lee Harold. He assigns Davy Lee Harold and Lewis Payne Powell to go to the Seward Mansion. The plan is to assassinate Lincoln at around 10:15 at night. And at 10:15 at night, at the same time, Booth wants Lincoln. I'm the man. This is the official narrative. Booth is like, I'm the man. I want the big cheese. I want Lincoln. Lewis Payne Powell, you go over to the Seward Mansion. You and Davy Lee Harold go to the Seward Mansion. And at the same time, 10:15, when the clock strikes 10:15, boom, I want you to slit that dude's throat. I'm going to shoot Lincoln. And George Atzerodt, Vice President Johnson, is going to be staying at the Kirkwood Hotel. I want you to go to his room and assassinate Vice President Johnson. This is the official narrative. So What does that remind you? Simultaneous attacks. Like in 9/11, you had the Twin Towers getting hit. Pop, pop. You had the Pentagon allegedly getting hit. Pop. You had Flight 93 on its way. You had all these things happening at the same time.
You have the bailout too, due to the hijackers that missed their flight, and Surratt, cowarding out and getting drunk. Like you have that aspect as well.
Yeah. And this is why, right there, my man. This is why it's important to know your historical things, even though I don't believe any of the official tell, because then you can see it play out through these other false flag events over and over and time and again. This is why I'm fascinated by it. So, sticking back to the official narrative, these simultaneous attacks were due to take place. Does that make sense? See, a lot of people don't even realize that these things were all to go down at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I had no clue about half of those. Nobody ever talks about them. I never learned about those in school. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, man. Any questions? I mean, well, So then the official story tells us that Booth goes. I guess I can zero down on the official narrative on what happened at Ford's Theater. Booth allegedly he did some pre-prep work, pre-assassination
prep.
yeah, drilling a hole, putting a little wedge, getting it ready,
Getting his little peephole ready to creep on the booth. Yeah, right.
The other funny thing is, throughout the night, even when he escapes, Booth is giving out calling cards. Calling cards were like ID cards, and shit like that.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm John Wilkes Booth. Nice to meet you. He's leaving these things throughout the night at Ford's Theater. Like, hey, by the way, I'm John Wilkes Booth. I'm gonna kill this son of a bitch.
What the fuck?
I'm right here. He's like, I'm laughing because this is official narrative stuff, man. When you really think about it, it's just preposterous, bro. It makes no sense. The other thing that McGowan points out is like, okay, so Booth is an actor. Why didn't he go in a disguise? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He could have donned the disguise, done all these things. Even when he crosses the Navy Yard bridge, he should have put on a disguise, because who knows if there would have been a telegraph sent out, hey, be on the lookout for John Wilkes Booth. But he doesn't do any of that, but he leaves his ID. Hey, here's a calling card. Here's one for you. It's an absolute joke, man. The official story. So anyways,
here
are some things that the official narrative talks about, but they gloss over like it's not a big deal. Yeah, that's kind of weird, but
right,
it happens, man. When you have so many coincidences, one coincidence, all right, yeah, that's kind of weird. Two coincidences, yeah, that's kind of weird. It could happen. But when you have so many coincidences, at a certain point, you're like, all right, enough of this shit. It's all nonsense.
Right. Yeah. Hell yeah.
What happens is, apparently, Ford's Theater had put out posters. Step right in, folks. Friday, April 14th, Good Friday. Abraham Lincoln is going to be here at Ford's Theater, and Ulysses S. Grant is going to be here. They have posters. He was going to be the guest, and he was more of a. People were, in reality, if we're to put ourselves in that mindset, people were already used to seeing Lincoln all the damn time. Right. Ulysses S. Grant wasn't from the area, so when he was announced to be there, people were like, "Damn, hell yeah, Ulysses S. Grant is going to be here." But guess what? Hours before the assassination, Ulysses S. Grant says, "Lincoln, my man, I'm sorry, bro, but I can't make it. I got to catch the midnight train to be in New York with my kids Saturday morning." And this is the official narrative. Right. People don't talk about that. Ulysses S. Grant bails out just a little bit. I've kind of likened it to Larry Silverstein just deciding to get a haircut the morning. He was at the Towers every damn day, but you know what? At this point in time, I'm gonna go get my haircut.
Right.
Oh wow, planes hit. So Ulysses S. Grant. In my view, I view him as a suspect, because even if he wasn't directly involved in it, he at the very least knew about it. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm out." Who the hell catches a midnight train? Why not wait till 6 a.m. on Saturday morning? You could have chilled with Lincoln. You could have enjoyed in the adoration of the crowd, but you decide to bail out on not just anyone, on Lincoln. You ghosted him. So when Ulysses S. Grant decides to not show up, Lincoln then approaches Assistant Secretary of War, Thomas Eckert. Thomas Eckert was a large fella. He was well over 6 foot, at a time where most people is like 5'5", 5'7", is like the average height. Lincoln was 6'4". Thomas Eckert was right around 6'3", 6'4", another large dude. He was the Assistant Secretary of War under Edwin Stanton. Damn. And his job as Assistant Secretary of War was to manage the telegraph lines. So Lincoln goes and asks Thomas Eckert, "Hey, man, Ulysses S. Grant can't make it. Can you show up?" Thomas Eckert says, "Sorry, bro. Edwin Stanton's got other things for me to be doing. I can't do it. Damn. So now
Happens to
you
be
got
busy.
two dudes flaking out. I'm trying to build my case on Henry Rathbone.
Yeah.
Henry Rathbone wasn't the primary or second choice. He was a third string fill-in.
Right.
I'm building my case. I'm going to build
Yeah.
some reasonable doubt. So imagine Thomas Eckert being in the box with Lincoln, because Henry Rathbone was a little guy. He was like 5'5", 5'6". Now you got not only Lincoln, a 6'4" dude. Now you got Thomas Eckert, two giant monster of men.
Right.
John Wilkes Booth was only 5'7". He comes in, Thomas Eckert would have laid his ass out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
And so now you have these two dudes that don't get put up and they bail out. So now the official narrative tells us that Henry Rathbone gets the invitation. Apparently, and some of the people that will go along with the official narrative will often point out that Ulysses S. Grant's wife had beef with Mary Todd Lincoln, that she was obnoxious. And based on some of the documents I've read, it sounded like Mary Todd Lincoln was kind of annoying, and she later got interned into the nut house by Robert Todd Lincoln, their son. So, I mean, I guess, but you still don't bail out on Lincoln. Like, it makes zero sense, man. But this is the official narrative. Henry Rathbone was engaged to Clara Harris, who was his stepsister. That was his fiance. And apparently Clara Harris and Mary Todd Lincoln did get along. That's why they chose them instead to go. All right. So now we're at Ford's Theater. They show up late. The Lincolns and Rathbone show up. It's Friday night. The play has already started. They're playing Our American Cousin, which is a play about, it's like a British type of play. And apparently it was funny. Apparently the shot is supposed to take place when the crowd erupts into laughter. Apparently there's a line in the play of Our American Cousin where this dude tells this girl, and I'm kind of I'm putting it in the Weezy way, but he's like, you're pretty much a hoe. And and everyone breaks out into laughter, and that's when allegedly Booth pulls the trigger. Now, there should have been an armed guard leading up to the presidential box.
Right.
That armed guard was, I'm confused now, if it's Matthew Crooks or Thomas Crooks.
Okay.
One of them was the alleged shooter at the Butler.
Right.
Yeah.
It's either Thomas Crooks or something Crooks, which is crazy. But oh no! I'm sorry. That was another guy that was supposed to be at the box. The guy was Jonathan F. Parker. Jonathan F. Parker was supposed to be the armed guard leading up to the box at Ford's Theater.
Okay.
This is a massive key to understanding why I view Henry Rathbone as a hardcore suspect. The person, so who chose Jonathan F. Parker as the security guard to leading into the box?
Mm-hmm.
No one other than Mary Todd Lincoln. Otto Eisenschimmel, in his book, written in the 1930s, shows the letterhead written in White House stationery that Mary Todd Lincoln chose Jonathan F. Parker as the security guard to watch anyone entering or leaving the presidential box. Why is that important? And official narrative people will tell you this with a straight face and not make a big deal of it. But it's a massive big deal because John F. Parker was handpicked by Mary Todd Lincoln. John F. Parker, this is why it's sketchy. John F. Parker was the most demerited cop in D.C. He was constantly written up for being drunk on the job, for picking up prostitutes and having sex with them and taking their money. and then jailing them for not providing free services. He was he was a straight up scumbag as a police officer. And this is who, out of all the cops in the area, anyone you could have chose, this is the guy you chose. So on the night
Interesting.
of Friday the 14th, April 14th, when Booth makes his way up to the box. Holy crap. John F. Parker's nowhere around. Guess where he's at? He's downstairs in the bar getting drunk.
With a couple hoes. Yeah, nice.
Yes. He doesn't show up till the next day with a hoe next to him and tries to arrest him. Like, hey, what the hell? You were supposed to be guarding the entrance into the presidential box.
Holy
That
shit.
is massive. Official people will just talk about that and just like, oh yeah, that he was supposed to be there, but he got drunk. Things happen. No, no. Hold up a minute. Wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you realize that he was chosen by Mary Todd Lincoln.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
The fact that he was handpicked and she picked somebody like that, that's insane. And weren't she and Lincoln allegedly like completely like goo over each other, right? Wasn't he like allegedly like I've also heard stories that he was gay. I don't know what's what with that.
Yeah. What's what in the butt?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know, man. Like I said earlier, I know the story inside and out.
Right.
And so many of these official parts just are silly and goofy. And you hear one thing, you'll hear one historian say one thing, you'll hear another one. That's another thing to keep in mind. In all these parts to the Lincoln assassination, there is no consensus.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get to the part where we're going to get to the good part where the shot takes place. So Booth decides to go. So when he conspires, when he wakes up with a hard on to kill Lincoln, he's gonna. His plan. This is how preposterous is. His plan is to go into Ford Theater with a one-shot Derringer. At a point in time when the multi-shot revolver is already, it already exists.
Yeah.
So that seems like a rational decision. Yeah. Right.
You're gonna go with a one-shot Derringer. Anyone that's familiar with a one-shot Derringer, it looks like a little toy gun, man. It's a tiny little thing. It does carry a 44 round pellet or ball, so it's a good size round. But it was considered highly inaccurate that you really have to be up and close. That's why we are told that Booth put the gun to his head, shot him behind the left ear, and it got lodged right under his right eye. And that's why they say that he had to turn his head to make it more feasible. But anyways, why? And I already told you, Booth was well off. He could have bought like 8. He could have gone in like Rambo. You know what I mean? Revolver here, revolver here, revolver here. Because how do you know? How are you to know that Jonathan F. Parker was gonna decide to get drunk? What if you had to take him out? Wouldn't it be, you got to shoot that son of a bitch. What if people start jumping? You got to shoot you. Now you're in a shootout. We're talking about at a point in time where most of the people in that theater were probably military personnel.
Right.
They're all there for Ulysses S. Grant. They're there. You're not talking about an average crowd is what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
You had to imagine most of the people present were military folk. You don't think they had guns on them? You know what I'm saying? So the official narrative tells us that Booth just decides to take a one-shot Derringer and a 10-inch knife, Bowie knife. That's his weapons. We are told he goes into the presidential box. One thing that doesn't really get addressed, and the more I've thought about it, because I played this scene over and over in my head, and that's why when I went to Ford's Theater, it was awesome because all the things that I had imagined in my head, I was able to see, all right, was I valid in thinking this? Now that I'm here, does it change anything? And it only confirmed what I had thought. The presidential box had 2 doors that go into it. So we're told Booth gets in there and he must have been surprised. Oh, wow, this guard is not here. Now it's just me and Lincoln and perhaps Ulysses S. Grant, because how was he supposed to know? You know, he didn't know. And he goes in there. He opens the door. No one notices. He wedges the door. I'm going to quickly go through the official narrative. I'm going to show you how preposterous the whole thing is. He then puts the gun to Lincoln's head. Lincoln turns his head at the wrong moment, pulls the trigger. Lincoln slumps down. Henry Rathbone is sitting on a little couch right B. So the seating arrangement was Lincoln by the door. Next to him, he was holding hands with Mary Todd Lincoln. Next to her was Miss Clara Harris, and slightly behind Mary Todd and Clara Harris in a little couch is Henry Rathbone, my suspect. We are told that after the shot gets, after the trigger is pulled, this is according to Henry Rathbone's deposition. You don't hear a lot of official people ever say this, but according to Henry Rathbone's deposition, someone that was allegedly in the box, as soon as Booth pulls the trigger, he's like, freedom. It's such a cartoonish event. So he yells freedom. Henry Rathbone lunges at John Wilkes Booth.
Oh my God.
They get into a little grappling match. Booth with his knife starts Hiya, Hungar, and slashing away at Henry Rathbone, leaving Henry Rathbone with a gash on his shoulder. And so Henry Rathbone has to like back off. Then we are told, and this isn't even a consensus, we are told, most people will tell you that John Wilkes Booth gets up on the box, on the ledge of the box, jumps down. He's going to jump down clean, but his spur catches the flag, and that kind of breaks his fall. Therefore, some people, this isn't even a consensus. Most people will say that that's when John Wilkes Booth allegedly breaks his leg.
Right.
He breaks his leg. He gets up, shows the bloodless shiny knife up in the air, and says, "Sic semper tyrannis," which translates to "thus always to tyrants." Right, some other people will also say that he also said the South is avenged. He does all this shit. Henry Rathbone, Clara Harris, or Mary Todd Lincoln, none of them still haven't said anything. So Booth is allowed to say his lines. He says all this shit and then hauls ass like Usain Bolt with a broken leg into the back of the theater, gets on a horse that's prepared for him, hauls ass, and 8 miles down the road, he's galloping. 8 miles down the road, he teams up with Davy Harold in the dead of night, and then they make their way to the Navy Yard Bridge, and they are allowed to pass even though they should have been on lockdown, and then a 12-yard chase, and then blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I want to focus on this. This is what I mean. I could spend hours and hours and hours on all these little aspects to it. But
insane.
Yeah. And I guess I try to make it exciting for people because
you do a good job.
I want people to get excited to it. And the reason for it, because you can see so many parallels to everything that goes on in today's world. So that's the official narrative. I want to start laying down my case. Well, before I get there, any questions?
Yeah, I thought I didn't even think about this. It's super interesting when you talk about the gun he used because, correct me if I'm wrong, Grant at the time was just as popular, if not more popular than Lincoln amongst the public, right? Decorated war general. It makes no sense that if he knows, at least in his mind, thinks that Grant's going to be there, why would you not plan to kill both of them? Like, that makes no sense to me. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah, exactly. And my Rathbone, so McGowan in his book never once states Rathbone as a suspect. But the magical part of McGowan was he would lay down the groundwork and let you put the rest of the puzzle piece together. So even though he never directly says it, I always credit him because he's the one that laid down the groundwork. Now, ever since I've gone down this rabbit hole, I've only been able to further bolster the case for Henry Rathbone as being the more likely shooter. And I'm going to give you pieces of evidence. And so as I deconstruct this, that's right there. That's one of the points. Okay. how realistic is it that this guy is gonna go armed with a one-shot Derringer and you don't? I mean, luckily, wow, how lucky the armed guard wasn't there. Wow, you go in there and Ulysses S. Grant or Thomas Eckert are not in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, like what are the odds? It's kind of like the BS fairy tales that we are sold when it comes to what happened in on 9/11 when
Yeah.
all of these alleged hijackers decided to all hijack the plane, simultaneous attacks
Right.
at just the precise moment that the government was engaged in war games.
Right.
How lucky, you know, like how did the hijackers know that helped them fly the planes around and do all this thing? How convenient. This again, you can find so many of these parallels, man, once you
Yeah.
really start thinking about it.
I mean, it's amazing how just like you just share the simple accepted narrative and it already sounds, in most cases, be it the Lincoln assassination, 9/11, like pick your favorite, the moon landing, even the official narrative when you just present the facts sounds insane. There has to be, to pass these off, like some kind of like weird, almost religious devotion to the narrative to even get the public to accept it, which is wild. It's just like hearing the straight facts, what you're saying, right? The accepted narrative, it already sounds so ridiculous. And that blows my mind.
That's why I do it. That's
Yeah.
why I do it. I don't have to embellish anything.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
giving you the straight
Yeah,
dope.
Yeah.
right.
This isn't me. A little bit off topic, man, but I listened to this other guy talking Lincoln stuff. And he started talking about, and I know that inside and out.
Yeah.
And it got a bunch of views, a bunch of likes on this YouTube channel. These guys are friends of mine. I know them. But it was disappointing because I reached out to him like, why did you guys platform this guy? This guy was spewing nothing but bullshit. If you guys want
Yeah.
Lincoln stuff, it sucks because I feel like I'm tooting my own horn, but I know this stuff. I know
Right.
it.
Yeah.
and
No, yeah.
I'm gonna give you the official story. You don't. This other guy was making stuff up, and I'm listening to this guy, and I'm getting pissed off. I'm like, why are you making shit up? Where did you get this from?
Right.
You don't need to make things up. Just go off of the official story, and that's what I do. I go with the official story, and then look. Here's the problem with it. Here's another problem. A one-shot Derringer. Who, if you really wanted to do this, would you really choose a one-shot Derringer? Would you really choose to make your escape route a 10-foot leap
Right.
to the stage? Would you really choose that? Or is that a convenient way by wedging the door shut to keep people out as you stage the crime scene?
Right. It
Right,
almost
yeah.
sounds performative, like the way it was described to me back in the day. Like it's, I mean, granted, like he was allegedly like an actor, right? Fine, but it almost sounds like a weird performance the way people describe it. Yeah.
Hold on to that thought because that's part of my thesis, if you will.
Nice.
So let me give you a little bit of background into Henry Rathbone. Henry Rathbone, a couple years after this incident, moves with his now wife, stepsister, Clara Harris. They go over to Germany. In Germany, at some point, he ends up killing Clara Harris, his wife.
What the hell?
He then takes a knife and cuts himself up and tells authorities that an assailant killed Clara Harris and almost tried to kill him. And the authorities in Germany said, nah, dude, you did this shit. And he ended up claiming insanity. And official historians will say that, oh, it's because of the PTSD from being there at the Lincoln. That's how they justify this.
Yeah.
I use that. All right. And McGowan says it in his book. All right. So now by him doing this later on in life, we already know he's capable of murder and self-inflicted knife wounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This guy sounds like a
That-
weird psychopath, like a demonic
Yeah.
psychopath kind of. Yeah.
100%. And so let's get into Henry Rathbone because here's where I'm going to try to put enough reasonable doubt. You're like, damn, I never thought about it, but I am a proud Henry Rathbone conspiracy theorist. We might have to make some shirts. I went to Ford's
Good
Theater.
idea.
I went to Ford's Theater on April 14th, and one of those nights I was a little bit buzzing, and my wife at the time, we're kind of going through shit right now. I'm getting divorced, but
Sorry to hear
she
that.
drove me down Ford's Theater, and as people were waiting, I was like, Henry Rathbone is the one that shot Lincoln. He drove off. I just fucking yelled it. I bet you they're like, what the fuck
The
is
one
going on
place
here?
that line really works. Yeah.
And anyways, let me relay down. So I just gave you his history, proceeding, and that makes your head scratch, right? Like, damn,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Let's get real into the weeds now, and why this is what for me solidifies it. Okay. Henry Rathbone gave a pre-deposition in 1865. In 1865. And then during the trial of the co-conspirators, he gave a second deposition. He then gives a third deposition in 1867 for the John Surratt Jr. trial. Okay. 3 depositions. The only difference in those depositions, in all 3 of those depositions, is that in the very first deposition, he gives his deposition in the third person. The second and third one
Weird.
are identically the same, but given in the first person. Think about that for 1 second. Wait a minute. He gave verbatim depositions 3 times?
Yeah, that sounds rehearsed.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
That's so
Why would
weird.
you ever do that?
Yeah.
And you can get, so there's a book by Timothy S. Good called We Saw Lincoln Shot. And it compiles 100 testimonies of people that allegedly were at Ford's Theater. And those 2 1865 depositions of Henry Rathbone in their entirety are right there in that book. And you can see that same shit, man. Word for word, verbatim, like an actor.
Gosh. Yeah.
So we are told that an actor, John Wilkes Booth, is the one that killed Lincoln. But in my opinion, the more likely shooter is another actor that rehearsed his lines and gave his deposition.
So
That's
crazy.
Henry Rathbone, man.
Why would he have given that first? Why would you give a deposition in the third person too? That's weird. Like what?
Yeah,
that's strange. Yeah.
Yeah, and and here's another interesting thing. There were 4 people in that box. Obviously, one of them died, Lincoln. And also, depending on the source, because allegedly there was another gentleman that was Charles Forbes allegedly was in the presidential box, but he didn't say that until many, many decades later. But according to Henry Rathbone's deposition, it was just them 4. Lincoln died. And we didn't get any depositions from Clara Harris. We didn't get any depositions from Mary Todd Lincoln. That's pretty damn weird.
Real weird.
And then the actions. Remember I told you, the official story says that it wasn't until Booth gave his little prepared speech, Sic Semper Tyrannis, the South is avenged. It was not until then that Henry Rathbone in his deposition says, "Stop that, man." and after he says that, Mary Todd Lincoln screams. Clara Harris never does anything. But like, how comical is that? So, and here's another fascinating thing. When you read Timothy S. Good's book of all the witnesses that wrote little things for that were there at Ford's Theater, one of the things that struck me immediately from these witness accounts was how so many said, "Damn, I didn't even know what was going on. I thought it was part of the play."
Right.
It looked fake. It looked fake. Damn. Think about that. I'm reading these things. I'm like, even people that allegedly were there, like, the fuck? This looks, something looks off.
That's one of those things I remember hearing even as a kid, like people saying, "Oh, they thought it was part of the play." But why would you ever think that was part unless it was like weirdly performative? That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
So that's another piece. But then the deposition of Henry Rathbone, when you really read it, and that McGowan goes over the depositions over and over and over again. He says, the reason I focus on Henry Rathbone is because he allegedly was in that theater or in that box. He allegedly took a knife wound from John Wilkes Booth. So let's break it down in its entirety, in its original form, how he said it, fresh. And then it doesn't matter if you read the first, second, or third. It's all the same. It's the same stuff that he gives, which is highly super weird.
Yeah.
But Mary Todd Lincoln not screaming when Lincoln gets shot, not screaming during the tussle with Rathbone, not screaming when Wilkes Booth jumps down, but only deciding to scream after he sprints Usain Bolt style out of the theater.
She got the stage fright. She was nervous.
That's highly unusual, highly unusual behavior. And I already told you she was the one that chose Jonathan F. Parker as the security guard. And then later you find out that Mary Todd Lincoln was perhaps having relations with the gardener at the White House. I'm mentioning this because when you say these things, sometimes people, when you talk about the Lincoln days, oh no, they weren't having affairs or relations. They loved each other. People have this weird way of thinking. People don't forget. This is what troubles me about like even slavery in those days. No, we were the same people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
But people try to make it was a different time. People try to people were still having affairs. People were doing this and that.
People still be fucking. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so when I talk about these things, I've gone down the link. Was Lincoln gay or not? I haven't made my mind one way or the other, but it would certainly bolster my theory on this because that would explain why Mary Todd Lincoln didn't really give a shit.
Right.
He was banging out that dude anyway. I don't care. Whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so some people will get angry when you even suggest that Lincoln. How dare you say that? This is all this LGBTQ nonsense. You're just trying to revision history. No. Let hold up, because I'm anti woke as hell. But there's something to it, and I'll give you some of the pieces of evidence. One of Lincoln's best friends was Joshua Fry Speed, and in the Lincoln letters, you see how much he loved his buddy. He even got depressed when Lincoln was engaged to Mary Todd Lincoln. They were gonna be having a wedding. And when he found out Joshua Fry Speed moved out of town, he got depressed and he had to postpone his own marriage. It is also known that Joshua Fry Speed, along with other dudes, whenever they were out of town and they were bunking up, they would sleep in the same damn bed. And people that are pro-Lincoln lovers and will get mad at me for even suggesting this.
Yeah.
Will tell you with a straight face, oh, well, it was a different time. Yeah, you're sick for thinking that. I'm like, I don't give a shit if it was the 1500s or whatever. I ain't sharing a damn bed with another dude unless, things are going to get a little buck wild, and I don't want none of that. So I'll just sleep on the damn floor. I ain't going to be, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no guys are trying to share beds together. Yeah, that's not a thing.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. People will look at you with a straight face like, oh, you're wrong for going there. It was a different time. No, get the hell out of that.
Right.
I ain't vibing with that, man. And so that having said that, am I convinced that he was 100% gay? No, I don't think there's any definitive proof for it, but there's circumstantial evidence that can lead you to point that way. Now, the next question that people will often say, well, damn, you've kind of introduced reasonable doubt. I'm kind of with you on that. That would suggest that people all around Lincoln were all in on it, like a Ulysses S. Grant, like a Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, and all these other characters. Also, shortly after the Lincoln assassination, the telegraph lines went down,
Oh
which doesn't really get
no.
talked about. Um,
That's
to
weird.
me,
That's real
it's
weird.
similar to the cameras conveniently going down
Yeah.
with
Yeah, with
Epstein.
Epstein.
With
Yeah.
Epstein, the telegraph lines going down also provides Booth more of a getaway, like more of a
Right.
head start. God, the telegraph lines are down. And remember, I told
Wow.
you, Thomas Eckerd's job, the reason he couldn't show up that night with Lincoln was because he was told he was busy that night. He couldn't do it. And his job was to maintain the telegraph lines, and they went down. Damn, bro. We're
He's doing a great job.
yeah. So before I move on, man, any questions, any thoughts?
Just one of the things that I notice is, or that I guess I noticed thinking about this was like, it's weird how Lincoln has become one of those figures, given the context of what you're saying. Like, he's one of those figures you can't criticize anymore. And I'm sure you've run into that a lot. Like, it feels like you can't. He's just one of those weird people you can't criticize, and it sounds like there's a reason for that. And I don't know exactly what it is about like him or what he stands for, but the amount of like pushback you'll get if you criticize him at all is insane. And in my personal experience, if there ever is anything that you can't criticize, there's probably a little something fishy there.
Yeah. I think so. I mentioned at the very beginning that I listened to that audiobook, A Short Life of Abraham Lincoln, by his former personal secretary, John George Nicolai. And
Mhm.
I wanted to know Lincoln the man. And because he has been lionized, and I
Yeah.
will often criticize him as well, but he also did some fairly good things as well.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I try to do a nuanced look on all these characters, man. I feel my worldview these days, I don't ascribe to the left and right paradigm, man.
Yeah.
It's all nonsense. And all these characters, I mean, to me, seeing someone like Joe Biden running the country allegedly, a
Right.
corpse, a vegetable. Get
Yeah.
out of here, bro. These are all controlled puppets. You
Right.
know, I also mentioned that I listened to that audiobook by a former prisoner of Andersonville. And in one of his diary entries, he didn't talk about Lincoln much, but in one of his entries, he goes, I like Lincoln. He seems like a nice guy, but he's controlled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, this is wild,
That's
man.
insane.
This
Yeah.
is a guy that's in prison, and he's already talking about, yeah, he might be a good guy, but he's obviously controlled.
That's
So
nuts.
I want to get into this because a lot of people will think, oh, Lincoln, I will often mention that he has been lionized, and under him, the Constitution didn't mean jack, bro. A lot of people
Right.
get sad because, oh man, our rights are getting eroded, or the Constitution is getting trampled. It didn't mean anything in 1865, man. People were
Yeah.
getting tossed in jail for nothing. People, one of the NDP detectives during that time was Lafayette Baker. He was a notorious criminal cop, man, and he invented midnight raids where they would go, anyone talking shit, we would go, we want to arrest you. They would just crash it. No warrants needed or nothing.
What?
So the
hell?
Constitution
Yeah.
didn't mean anything. So this whole idea, oh man, our Constitution is getting violated in 2020. It never, in my opinion, has never really meant anything. It means well. It has great ideas, but it's never been followed, man.
Yeah.
And this is another reason why I like to focus on 1865. If things didn't matter 160 years ago,
Right.
why do you think it's any different today, man? It really isn't. And so under Lincoln, the writ of habeas corpus was suspended.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so that doesn't often get mentioned. I
Right.
mentioned Andersonville. He knew about Andersonville, and he knew that through prisoner swaps, they could have saved 13,000 people from dying needlessly under atrocious conditions, and he decided against it. Now, here's some of the, because I do talk smack about Lincoln quite a bit, but I feel one of the reasons he was taken out was because he didn't really he knew the Civil War was coming to an end. He didn't really want to punish the South. He didn't want to be hardcore on the South. The radical Republicans, which would be your equivalent to progressive Democrats today.
Right.
Again, this is why I don't ascribe to the left, right, because they switch sides, man. It's just constant left and right. And if you ascribe to the Republicans 1 year, then a short time down the road, you're going to be on the wrong side of the history. Like when 9/11, it was lefties, Democrats that were on the right side of history by opposing the Iraq war. And it was conservative Republican Christians that were pushing for war with Iraq. You fast forward, everything's inverted. Now it's left pushing for war, and it's the conservatives against it. And so that's why I'm like, screw both sides, man. They flip-flop. Back in Lincoln's time, it was the radical Republicans that were Lincoln's party, which would if we were to look at it in today's terms, they were like the progressive Democrats. They wanted to go hardcore on the South. How dare they rebel during Reconstruction? We want to make them pay, man. We want this. We're gonna lay down the pipe on these guys.
All right.
And by getting rid of Lincoln, they could now have Vice President Johnson take over, and look what happened under his regime afterwards.
Right.
Reconstruction was rough for the South.
Train wreck.
So I want to quickly cover that, because people will ask, well, why would his own people get behind it?
Right.
God, lost my train of thought. I mean, I kind of went off the rails.
No, I mean, that makes sense, and you do wonder in that case, like, why are his own people pushing seemingly to get him out of there? Like, why was Mary Todd involved? Why were all these other people involved? People like Grant, and so I mean that helps to answer that question of why his own party may have wanted to get rid of him at that point in time. Gosh, that is insane. That's insane.
Yeah, man. There's so many aspects to it. I didn't even talk about the escape. I didn't even talk about the Seward Mansion. I'm telling you, man, it takes me lots of hours. But I mean, if anyone's interested, I definitely have a whole Lincoln assassination. I even engaged in somewhat of a civil debate with James Perloff. He's written a book on the Lincoln assassination, and I kind of pushed back, but it was nothing rude or vicious. I was like, look, this is why I view it this way. This is what, and even though he didn't agree with my findings, he's like, I can see why you think that way, which I thought it was super, super, super awesome. But I'm trying to think anything related to the Ford's Theater that I may have missed that may be interesting to folks. But I don't know, man. Have I introduced at the very least some reasonable doubt?
You definitely have. Yeah. I mean, I've always, obviously, like growing up, heard of John Wilkes Booth as the likely candidate for shooting Lincoln. Well, not even as the only candidate for shooting
The
Lincoln.
only one. The only one.
Yeah, they don't even introduce it as like he likely, they just tell you that's who shot Lincoln. Another like
as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no question about it. He's just another 3-name assassin to go down in the books. And which that's another why all the presidential assassins go by 3 names? That's a little weird.
So let me give you some pretty fascinating coincidences that happened during the Lincoln assassination, before, during, and after, and some of the eerily crazy parts that relate to the JFK assassination.
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's go.
Yeah. So Abraham Lincoln was put into office in 1860. JFK in 1960, almost 100 years apart. Both of them had Vice President Johnsons.
Yeah.
And Vice President Johnson in Lincoln's time was born in 1808. Vice President Lyndon B. was in JFK's was born in 1908. It's kind of crazy. And some of the more crazier ones, this is probably my favorite one. Lincoln was killed at Ford's Theater.
Right.
JFK was killed in a Ford Lincoln.
Good heavens.
And then we're told that Booth killed Lincoln at and they both got shot in the head.
Right. Yeah.
Both of them, their assailants initially got away, and both assailants were killed before trial. You know, crazy shit. But we're
Yeah.
told in the JFK. Another fascinating thing is when Lincoln got shot, they carried him across the street to the Peterson home. JFK, when he got shot, he got took down to Parkland Hospital, PH.
Oh,
Peterson home,
Yeah.
Parkland Hospital. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But we're told that Lincoln was shot in a theater and ran into I call it a tobacco barn, but some people will say a tobacco warehouse or whatever.
Mm.
And that's where he put up his last stand. In the JFK assassination, we're told that Lee Harvey shot from a warehouse and ran into a theater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's weird the amount of parallels there. It's so
Yeah.
Isn't there one with the assistants too? Like isn't there one with
No,
their
that's
assistants?
bullshit.
Oh,
That's
is it?
bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not true. You'll hear people say that Lincoln had a secretary Kennedy.
Yeah.
One of them is true, but I can't remember exactly which one. But the other one is
Okay.
complete bullshit. It's made up. So
Fair enough.
I try to stay away with stuff that is made up, man. If you can't
Yeah.
verify it, why even bother with it? There's so
Right.
many parts to it, like that link in a Lincoln Ford's theater. That one is nuts and it's real.
Yeah.
Why go with stuff that's completely made up? But yeah, the
Right.
secretaries is not true. You'll hear it, but it's not true at all.
That
Yeah,
helps.
even what you pointed out, it's like the weapons that were used is like Wilkes Booth, used an inefficient weapon for the job. And I think what they had, I can't remember the rifle that he used, but it was a bolt action, kind of clunky bolt action rifle, and to where he allegedly fired 3 times in a matter of seconds would have been absolutely impossible to like actuate the bolt and do that,
Yeah, it's
It's weird
hilarious.
how much trouble a lot of these assassins tend to have with their firearms. I don't know what's going on. We got firearms in bags. We got one-shot derringers. We got
Yeah.
like what's going on with their guns? Are they
Yeah.
doing that bad of a job of murdering? Like what's going on?
But that's
It's
what
crazy.
I mean. Once you start seeing these stupid little things, you're like, all right.
Yeah.
Like my BS meter immediately goes up these days. Like I start seeing things, Charlie Kirk, all these other things. Like, oh,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I want to
bullshit.
ask about that because I've kind of had this thought since the Charlie Kirk shooting. Is it seems like the way that these events are being constructed is that they're almost getting like more and more and more absurd. Because it's like you think of the Lincoln assassination and the official story. If you don't really think about it, is you can believe it if you don't give it any thought. If you just
Right.
it's the 3rd grade paragraph in the textbook. Then you get to JFK, gets a little bit more absurd, right? Then you get to 9/11, it gets way more absurd. And then you get to Charlie Kirk, it gets more absurd. And it's like, what do you think like is going on there, and what's the cause of that? Because it's like you have JFK, you have him shooting 3 times in a matter of seconds while the car's moving. Impossible. 9/11, you have the passport falling down when the black boxes can't be found. Charlie Kirk, you have his neck stopping a 30-06 bullet. Like, what do you think's causing that? Like, where it's just getting more and more and more absurd, where you don't even have to give it nearly
thought.
as much thought as you used to actually like break down.
I feel the people writing these scripts, they realize that the overwhelming majority of people will accept it. You can make it as absurd as you want, and the overwhelming people will buy it. If and the very few that decide to engage in critical thinking, like, nah, man, that looks fake.
Yeah.
You get looked at as loony. Like I did a show on the Trump assassination, like within hours after it happened, with Steve Poikonen, and we both like, damn, man, what do you think? What do you think? I think it looks fake.
Yeah.
And it was funny because even with my own listeners, many of my listeners were like, dude, I love you, Weezy, but you're off base, man. No, Trump almost got killed, man. Almost got killed. And I stayed with it. I ain't changing for no one. And then I would ask the poll even a few months later, and eventually people were like, damn, Weezy, I initially thought you were crazy, but now I see
Yeah.
you. When the Kirk stuff happened, I knew it was off right away because it was just so preposterous, man.
Right.
I grew up in Utah when I was young. I know the whole Provo, Orem area. It's like hardcore Mormons there, and they're cowboy Mormons. Again, it's kind of like Fort Theater full of military. You
Right.
know, there was people there that had guns, and no one decided to take a shot. This guy's on this roof making this miraculous shot, folding up his gun. Like the
Yeah.
whole thing was preposterous. And then watching all the alleged videos of him allegedly getting killed are all in low res.
Right.
No one caught it in ultra HD. No
Yeah.
one. No
Okay.
one. Like,
People's hands
it's
going
like
through tables. Yeah, like a bunch of weird shit.
in the Trump assassination. To this day, there is no footage of the actual side taking the alleged bullet by his ear. To this
Right.
day, where is that footage?
Yeah.
Where is that footage?
Didn't that one
You're
guy?
never gonna see these things,
Yeah.
man. And the thing is, most people never bother to ask these questions. In the Las Vegas shooting, one of the funniest parts is we're told Stephen Paddock gets in a shootout with Jesus Campos, one of the security guards working there.
Oh yeah, I forgot
And he
about
took
that.
he took 300 rounds. And he took 300 rounds and only
Yeah,
got a
like,
scrape
hit him in
on
the
the
leg.
calf.
Yeah,
A
that's
scrape
insane.
on the calf. Took 300 rounds with this high-powered machine gun, man. And gets a little scratch, a little dab of blood. And I've been to Vegas many times, man. I lived in the West Coast. If you decided to take a piss, let's say you've been drinking, you've been gambling, you've been playing craps all night. Damn, I got to piss. I can't hold it. And you decided to piss. You're on camera.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere. So if this alleged shooting between Stephen Paddock and Jesus Campos ever took place, I don't think it ever happened. It's like the Seward Mansion attack. It's all
Right.
bullshit. Why haven't we seen the shootout? He didn't die. Wouldn't it have been cool? Oh man, he took 300 rounds and he got a little tiny scratch on his calf. Let's see this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people never ask these fucking questions. When the Las Vegas shooting happened, that was one of the things that motivated me to do my podcast, because I'm seeing this as someone that was just listening to shows and doing shows, but no one's talking about it. I'm like, how come no one is talking about this damn camera in the casino? No one's bringing it up. And so I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of Nostradamus or any of that shit, man. It's just simple. Anyone can do this. You just have to break away from the official narrative bullshit. I'm at the point in time where as soon as I hear anything, some tragedy, Charlie Kirk, whatever bullshit, my immediate mind, the way my mind works in the McGowan spirit is, why do you want me to know about this now?
Yeah.
What's the reason why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how
Yeah.
I work these days. And so
Right.
initially when I saw the Charlie Kirk stuff, I'm like, man, this feels off. And then I see Charlie Kirk's wife just seem so pathetic, man. A straight up actress.
Yeah.
Just
that's been
con
weird.
job, bro. And you start seeing all these things. I'm like, man, I don't buy any of it. But I'm at the point now where I don't go balls deep anymore. I just like, that's bullshit. Next, what other? I mean, we're constantly getting flooded with these psyops, man. And sorry, long-winded answer to what you said, John, or you asked me like, why are we seeing the absurdity? Because the vast majority of people won't even bother to question it. They can get away with it. That's why they know people will accept it. You know what I'm saying? And it's only a small minutia of the population that will say, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. Wait a minute, that doesn't add up. And so that in a long-winded answer is why I think it happens that way.
That makes good sense, and I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think about. But like it almost seems to me like a psyop in itself to just see. They seem to socially engineer these things to where like you will likely give up a portion of your social cachet if you like deny the veracity of some of these events. If you say like, hey, I think there was some bullshit going on with the Kirk shooting or the Trump shooting or Las Vegas, like there are going to be in a lot of social circles consequences for, questioning a lot of these things. And they seem to be engineered that way. I guess my big question is always like, why are we, what's the purpose of engineering it that way? Is it to see how well the mass populace just accepts it? Is it to see how how much the mass populace is willing to attack the people who will question those things. What's the purpose of constructing these events in such a fashion that a lot of the people who question these things, especially immediately, like you're talking about when you question the Las Vegas shooting and people are like, hey, what's going on with that? When you question it, you're vilified. It's weird the way they construct them, and kind of well insofar as you're kind of backed into a corner if you decide to question them, especially soon after the events occur. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, David McGowan, towards the end of that Lincoln book, Why Everything You Think You Know About the Abraham Lincoln Assassination Is Wrong.
Yeah.
Towards the very end, he writes, he talks about this one senator from Kentucky, I believe, I can't remember his name, that soon after the Lincoln assassination, he was saying he had questions if Booth was ever killed. He's like, we haven't been presented a body. How do we know? It seemed he was already asking these questions, and he was basically saying all the evidence that has been brought forth about this whole Lincoln assassination doesn't make any sense. He was already questioning everything. And McGowan brings up the senator from Kentucky, because he says, even in today's world, 160 years later, you have people questioning these events, but no one will ever care. People love being brainwashed. I think people they don't even realize it. It's not like they're like, oh yeah, brainwash me, daddy government. They don't even realize it. They're fully indoctrinated at this point. They don't even know any better. So one of the funny stories that I often remember was having a conversation with one of my cousins. I grew up with my cousins. Like, we grew up as brothers when we were kids. I'm 5 days apart. His mom and my mom were sisters, and so wherever they moved, we moved, and we lived in the ghetto in California and shit. And my cousin, obviously, you get older, and life takes you different trajectories and different paths.
Right.
And so I don't really talk to my cousins that much, but I remember, man, like 20 years ago, we were having a barbecue at his mom's house, and then my cousin started talking about 9/11, and I was a full-on normie at this point in time. I didn't believe in any conspiracies. I was full into NPR, full on to MSNBC, Rachel Maddow. I love that shit. That I'm telling you, I'm not.
You made a big transition. Yeah,
I'm not. It's not like I'm bragging about it. It's funny now, but that was me. Yeah. I was fully into the left-right politics back then.
Sure.
And so I was at this barbecue, and then my cousin starts like, dude, 9/11 was an inside job. And he starts rattling off all these conspiratorial points. And this was like 20 years ago.
Right.
And I remember this. I don't know. I don't have any idea what kind of shit he was talking about. My brain was like conspiracy. And I'm looking at my cousin. He's talking to me, and I'm looking at him dead in the eyes, but my mind is zoned out. I'm like, what the fuck happened to my cousin? This dude is batshit crazy.
Right.
And
yeah.
And I didn't want to be rude to him, because this is like my brother, man. So I just let him riff off, going crazy on 9/11 and whatever. And
yeah.
And at that point in time in my life, I was like, man, this dude is brainwashed. Unbeknownst to me, it was me that was brainwashed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like a couple years ago when my mom died, I went back to Utah and, for the funeral and everything. I was hanging out with my cousin, and I brought this up to him. I'm like, dude, you were the first person that ever told me about 9/11 being an inside job and everything.
Did he even remember?
He didn't remember. And I go, dude, I remember you telling me that. And I thought you were crazy and everything. Now, all these years later, I'm all into that stuff. And he just thought it was funny. But
yeah, that's nuts.
It just shows you, man, like, I know some people will get frustrated with normies at times. Like, oh, that's a lost cause. That's a lost cause. I take a different approach, because I was one of those normies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I believed the official narrative for many years. I trusted in it. I got into the firefighting service because of the 9/11 stuff. You know what I'm saying? I believe the official narrative.
Right.
And now all these years later, the more I know, the more I believe everything is bullshit. Everything is fake and gay. I don't trust any of it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it took me a while to get there. Everyone has a journey. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think the biggest key is when you're talking conspiracies with people, the way I do it these days is I feel people out. If I throw some things out and see how they feel about it. And funny enough, some of my friends, I start talking to them like, oh yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, I didn't believe Trump got shot. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
And you start realizing, damn, there's a lot of people that don't go down the rabbit holes maybe as you guys and I do, and even our listeners, our regular listeners.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people out there that don't believe the government already. They
Yeah.
know there's a lot of bullshit out there.
That's
You
so
know?
true. So true. And there are more and more of them, it seems, as time goes on, because I mean, kind of like you said earlier, John, like the narratives keep getting more and more fucking insane. And I think that just for me, and not to harp on this again, but like the thing that is stopping people from having these discussions more openly are just, in a lot of cases, just the social implications of saying that out loud in, a social setting at work. You all might believe the same thing, but shit, what if I say this in front of my boss, and they don't agree with me type stuff. And so, yeah, I 100% agree with that. There are way more people out there that I think are starting to question a lot of these things than meets the eye. It's just, at least for me, the way I perceive it, like a lot of this seeming social engineering that's gone on makes it perhaps more difficult than one would like to have some of those discussions in, I guess more formal social settings, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's it's part of the plan. Like you just stated, social engineering, man.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I don't know where we go from here, man. The internet has been awesome because it has exposed people to different ideas.
Right.
And again, the way censorship works, that's been a way to silence a lot of voices. Like my views on Lincoln are maybe it's me being self-unaware, and I feel that they are vastly interesting and intriguing, and they could be put up against the test against your highest caliber Lincoln assassination. I tried having this conversation with some Rangers at Ford's Theater.
Yeah.
One dude got upset, but he couldn't rebut anything I said. He got mad. He really got mad and walked away, but he couldn't rebut what I said about Henry Rathbone.
That's what'll happen when people know somebody else is right. They get upset because their worldview's being threatened. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess what kind of saddens me, but not so much. I don't lose sleep over it, but it kind of bothers me because I'm like, I would love for people to hear my takes on it. Not because I'm trying to toot my own horn, because as I've already stated, I'm just trying to carry the McGowan torch at the end of the day. That's why I'm always sure to say, look, this was inspired by David McGowan. Now I've taken different routes and different angles from it. But that's all I'm trying to do is keep the McGowan memory alive. And hearing this version of the Lincoln assassination, I think for a lot of people I know I fully understand that it's not a lot of people's cup of tea to begin with. But if you will have gone into it, hearing my takes on it, like, whoa, that is wild. Like it's completely new. And I don't feel it's batshit crazy, the way I try to dissect it anyways, because I have given you the official narrative and then I just riff off of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes total sense. I think there's so much gatekeeping in a lot of the more academic circles, which is, I mean, I don't know if you see yourself this way, but like you're kind of bridging into some of those academic realms, studying, history the way you are. But there's so much gatekeeping there, so much of this like snobbish nose up in the air, like type shit out there. It's hard to engage in just honest intellectual conversations with these people. It's hard to get them to deign to talk to, the way they perceive us as like the common man, even though you probably know a lot more about it than a lot of those people do. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's frustrating, man. But at the same time, I'm like, I just have to rely on the people that follow me, follow my work, and then help that, hopefully they share it with friends and word of mouth, because I've been kicked off of YouTube 3 or 4 times at this point. The YouTube channel that I got now is like my 4th or 5th time, and somehow I have 1,000 subs on that, and I don't even use it anymore. So that is humbling for me, man. It just shows that people resonate with what I have to say, and tying it back all to the beginning of the show, it's humbling for me, man, because I never imagined that. I just wanted to drink some beers on the beach, and if someone wanted to listen, that's all, and here we are, man. So I want to thank you guys for the invite, man. And
I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, because we're obviously, like, we're small, have a small, little community that we're trying to build. So I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to do it. And I think, like, you talk about maybe not a lot of people are interested. I think anybody who hears the way you describe the Lincoln assassination will be immediately, like, it's just fascinating the way you talk about it. And you don't even have to, like, you don't even have to come at people with wild facts. You just tell the official narrative and just point out all the shit that doesn't make sense. Like, it's that straightforward, simple, but fascinating the way you talk about it. I mean, it's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating just like how it connects when you actually start thinking about the other events, and like also just like how early this shit started. If you really think about it, like how early like all of this deception and all of this just nonsensical like major events that they push on started. Like if you go back that early, it'll really blow your mind.
The Revolutionary War, man. I want to do a show at some point. It's the earliest American recorded conspiracy, and that's the Newburgh. The Newburgh conspiracy. Basically, it came right after the Revolutionary War. The soldiers were not getting paid by the newly formed American government. Right. And they are ready to cause mutiny, man. They're like, man, this motherfucker, he promised me this. I haven't got paid. And so they're ready to revolt.
Yeah.
And George Washington, we are told, this is the official story. I don't believe it. I think this is exactly when the bankers took over. But the official story tells us that George Washington gets wind of this, and he meets people, puts down his glasses like the elder statesman that he is, some freaking, I don't know, revolutionary music in the background, a little drummer boy. It's all emotional. He's like, hold up, guys, man, have faith. This is a new system that's going to be tried. We're going to make it work. And because George Washington came in as a boss and calmed everything down, everyone's like, you're right, man. We were gonna whoop your ass. We were gonna rebel, but your speech turned me. And now the new American government takes form, and the bankers are not involved at all. This is the official narrative.
Right.
I believe that's exactly when the goddamn bankers took over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is what I mean. Like, this is at the very inception of the country.
Yeah.
The Newburgh conspiracy. So when people say, a lot of people will say, everything changed on November 22nd, 1963. Like, nah, man, I beg to differ. This goes way back, way before then, man. Then when you go to DC, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the DC area, you see the Masonic influence everywhere, man. Right. You go to Ford's Theater. I was at Ford's Theater. They had the black and white tiling at Ford's Theater, which wasn't original. They put that on.
Yeah, I was
when you walk.
That.
Yeah, when
they put
around,
that on in 1920 whenever they rebuilt after the collapse. Yeah, that wasn't like original to the.
Yeah, and you know what happened at the collapse?
What?
They turned Ford's Theater soon after the assassination into record keeping for the Lincoln assassination. And during the collapse, a lot of those records, damn it, man, sucks. Shit happens.
Shit happens.
Isn't that funny how that always happens?
Yeah.
Always happens.
It's amazing the way that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Our records,
wild,
just fires have a way of finding records. They do.
Yeah, we taped over the moon landing clips.
Yeah, it's not weird.
Yeah.
We just happen to do this happen. Yeah, it just happens sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Jeez.
we the F1 engines that we built that allegedly had 3,000 tons of thrust to take these
Right.
jets. 3,000 tons of thrust is insane. Man, wouldn't it be nice to have those plans so we could build some new stuff to take us back in 20? Well,
Right.
we don't have those plans anymore.
Just misplaced the
I'm
tech.
sorry,
We've lost the
man.
technology. It's
We-
painful to bring it back.
we spent a certain percentage of the GDP for this NASA project, but to save some money, to save a couple of rubles, we had to record over the original tapes. Shit happens, man.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
$12 is that
It's
important to
ridiculous.
us. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, man.
Gosh.
Everything is a show.
Man, that's wild. That is wild. Well, man, hey, thanks for doing this. I know you've got another show after this, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I appreciate you coming on and doing this with us. I guess let everybody know where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me. Just put in "What Is True" podcast by Weezy. I would ideally like you to follow me on Odyssey. Should I ever? Is that my Odyssey channel? Yeah, I think it is Odyssey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right there, because that is the last stand for free speech. I've been taken out everywhere. I think if I get taken, I think I'm gonna get smashed at Rumble at some point. Rumble's been doing real good. You can follow me on Rumble if you want. You can follow me wherever you want. But if you enjoy my content, definitely, yeah. If you go back to the Odyssey channel, if you go look at the playlist there, if you don't mind, see the playlist, and there you go, my moon landing playlist and Lincoln. And if you click on the Lincoln, if you click on it, look at all those videos on the Lincoln Assassination that I have. So you have tons and tons of hours and content, including that audiobook right there. So yeah. Thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah, man.
I had a blast, and
Us too. Would love
always-
to. Yeah, would love to chat with you again.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been a good time. I've learned a shitload today. So guys, go follow What Is Truth Pod. I know I've checked out just a few of your videos, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. There's a ton of good content there. So go drop him a follow sooner rather than later, please, folks. Check us out on all the socials. We've got another live stream coming up this coming Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday now.
Wednesday?
Should hopefully be the last time we've rescheduled. But yeah, Wednesday at 7 with Austin Picard talking Delphi.
So that should be a good time as well. And then we'll have a live stream coming up Tuesday for Touch Me Tuesdays. I don't know what day that is. I guess that's the 15th on Tuesday. So
16th,
16th, whatever. Yeah, that 16th, Tuesday the 16th at 7. So check us out then. Weezy, man, thank you again. This has been a blast. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it, guys.
Have a good one. And folks, thanks for listening. We'll catch y'all at the next one. Bye.